Best of r/malicious compliance episode 77. Subscribe for edit videos daily. Long time lurker here, first time poster. Hopefully it fits. My work involves me having to install hardware in all of my employer's assets. This makes me fairly unavailable for all my other responsibilities, but it only happens on occasion, so it's normally no big deal. It only gets costly if I'll be away for extended amounts of time. As it so happens, we acquired another project a couple states away in New Mexico, so I needed to go on site for a week or two to get all the assets in line. I drive the 14 hours to get on site and arrive on a Monday only to find out that my cell provider has no towers in the area, so my phone is effectively a high-tech Rolodex. I tell them I'll need them to pick me up a little prepaid phone on whatever network works best in the area. I'm not picky, I just need a crappy $100 phone for the next 2 weeks. They tell me they'll have it waiting on me in the office Tuesday morning. The thing about my job is I typically answer to no one besides the owner of the company. I know my job inside and out. I know who I need to talk to whenever I need something, and I'm damn good at what I do. I'm not a complete ass, but I'm used to my employer giving me whatever I say I need because they know that if I want something there's a reason for it. Enter our problem. The project lead for this project moved over to my company when we bought the project out, so he feels like he has something to prove. When I arrive on Tuesday morning, I ask the supply tech for my new phone. He twirled his thumbs a bit and tells me he was instructed to tell me I need to talk to the project lead. I thought this was odd, but figured maybe he just wanted to introduce himself. I enter his office and my first impression is that this might be the smuggest looking prick I've ever met. I've long learned that my first impression of someone is usually accurate, so I mentally buckle down and prepare for a shitfest. He skips over introducing himself. I assume because he is so important I should have read his autobiography at some point, and immediately jumps in. "You the one wanted a phone?" I nod in affirmation, and before I can speak he dives back into his monologue. "No one else around here gets a phone. Don't know why you think you're special. If you need internet you can use the office Wi-Fi." Rather than wasting my breath explaining things, I decide that I just shrug and say, "Okay, whatever you say." Here's where the malicious compliance kicks in. Whenever I'm on a location they get billed by the main office for all my time, supplies, etc. This all comes out of their bottom line, but I usually work quickly so it isn't too bad. The thing is, the assets I'm installing hardware on are about 45 minutes away from the office and I have to ensure each one is activated before I can install the next to ensure there are no errors with integration. This means that instead of just activating them from my phone and troubleshooting on the spot, I have a 45-minute drive in between every step of my job. My job now goes 45-minute drive to asset location, install hardware, 45-minute drive to office, activate. If activation works, another 45-minute drive to do next asset. If not, then 45-minute drive back to troubleshoot, which hopefully works the first time, but can easily take more trips. Long story short, this turns what was originally going to be a 2-week project into just over 6 weeks. My time is not cheap, nor is my equipment. The increase in cost to his project was around $14,000 once you factor in my pay and the fuel costs. Then add however much the extra 4 weeks of paying for me to stay at a Holiday Inn Express costs. I never saw this bill so I didn't factor it in, but I assume it was around $700/week. That brings us up to an extra $17,000. That would have been the end of it, but main office was not happy about this, as me not being available except for by email at night / when I was in the office caused them tremendous difficulty in the extra month I was absent. They ended up backcharging his project for every cost that had come along due to my absence, which totaled just under $60,000. So now his project is being hit with almost $80,000 in charges, all because he wanted to flex his authority and deny me a phone which would have cost a couple $100. That would have been the end of it, but then I'm told this morning that our newest project lead is being let go for wasting resources. TL. Doctor, no. We won't spend a couple $100 to make your job efficient. Just do it the hard way. Sorry for crap formatting. This was done from my phone and I'm a crap writer. Edit. A lot of people are asking why I handled this the way I did. I'll add some details. 1. The $60K in back charges was basically the main office mailing him for everything possible, and was within the company. The actual costs of my absence to the company were far lower, as I have things set up to run fairly efficiently. 2. I tried on numerous occasions to explain why I needed this phone and was dismissed each time. 3. When I complained to the home office I was basically told just to grin and bear it. It obviously couldn't be that bad. 4. The sink or swim attitude permeates deep in this industry. That man was being paid around $450,000 a year and should therefore be able to function on his own. 5. In this industry, individual mistakes at the PM level can quickly climb into the hundreds of thousands or millions. It's worth what my MC cost just to get rid of a shitty PM. 6. If you think I should have just covered his ass, I tried. I could have tried harder, sure, but at some point you have to stop covering people's/businesses' asses and let them screw up on their own. People like him get to that position because people keep covering their screw-ups up for them. Thank you. Next. I'm sick. Been sick for 5 days, and haven't done anything the past 3 days, so I got a call from a number with the same country code as me. I usually don't pick up since I've gotten a lot of spam calls lately, but I'm bored, and since it's the same country code I picked up. M. Me. C. Caller. S. Steve. I don't remember if he was a supervisor or what he was called by C. The conversation goes, somewhat, as follows. C. Hi, I'm calling from the IT department of Microsoft. We have experienced some problems with your computer. He is talking with a thick Indian accent. Also odd for me, since I live in Europe, and they had the same country code as me. We've seen that some hackers have gotten your private information without your permission. M. OHH. My mind racing for good responses. C. So we need you to start up your PC, so we can guide you on what to do. M. OK, starts up Mac instead of PC, so that I could mess with them even more, if I got a chance. C. What do you see? M. I see a picture, and some files, a PDF file, some pictures, some other files and some folders. Do you want me to read up all the files? C. No. Do you see a control button? A control button? M. Yes, I see a C, T, R and L buttons. C. Good. What's next to that? M. Next to the C there's a X. Next to the T there's a R. Next to the R there's an E. And next to the L there's a K. C. He repeats himself, and I repeated myself. It happened once or twice more. C. I'm transferring you over to a supervisor. M. Okay. He didn't transfer, but used some time till he handed the phone to somebody else. I know this since he didn't even mute the call and I could hear other people in the background. A woman on another call, in an Indian accent. You have a problem with your PC. Finally a guy picks up the phone. S. Hi, this is Steve. He stuttered a little while saying his name. Do you know why we are calling? M. Wanting to mess with M as much as possible. No. S. There were some bad men stealing your private information and using them without your permission. We want to help you. M. Oh okay, what do I do? S. Do you see the control button at your bottom left? M. Yes. S. What's next to that? M. Next to the C there's a X. Next to the T there's a R. Next to the R there's an E. And next to the L there's a K. S. S. You BTCH. FCK for wasting our time. M. No FCKU. He hung up. Made my day, just to make Steve mad. No, I can't get the phone conversation, but I talked to my dad, and he had also messed with these guys before, but those convos don't belong in this sub. Thank you. Next. So this story takes place yesterday and today. My English teacher is very uptight with her grading and takes it very seriously. She sometimes takes points off for things like grammar on a test about a novel. Basically a bunch of normally A students have B's and C's. So on to the meat of the story. Yesterday we were assigned a research project where we research a controversial topic and make a slideshow/movie using Picture Story 3. In our notes we needed 3 articles annotated, and notes on a separate sheet including 2 quotes for each article, and 2 paraphrased facts each. I decided, since she gives low grades to slackers, that is do some extra work. Instead of paraphrasing with bullet points, it said nothing about bullet points on the rubric. I wrote full sentences in a mini paragraph form thinking it would boost my grade. So at the end of class I hand her my papers, and she sorts through to grade. I knew I messed up when I saw her get a grin and look at me with these malicious eyes. She then says to me that I formatted my page wrong, so I got half of the entire 20-point assignment wrong, even though formatting was only 5% of the grade, and gave me an F all because I didn't do a bulleted list. She then says do it the way I tell you or get points off. She said this, which filled me with anger as sparks went off in my mind for revenge. I knew exactly how I was going to do it as well. The next day we were working on citations and making our bibliography papers, and I made sure to follow the rubric word for word. For the sake of time, I will tell you about the two biggest examples. First off, she said to leave 2 spaces between each source. So instead of pressing enter twice for 2 lines of space, I pressed space twice. Then, she said to title it, Works Cited. I did these things exactly how she vaguely wrote her rubric. I mean, she could not give points off for me following the rubric because I did as she said. I printed the paper following her MLA format, and as she came around the computer lab room, I got nervous and excited at the same time, but mostly anxious. She got to me and I was almost laughing, but I kept my cool, and she turned to me and said, "What did I say to you yesterday?" In return I told her, "I did what you said." She returned with a snarky attitude saying how she never said to put brackets on the title and the spaces needed to be too tall. I have her that same grin back and said to her face that she put it on the rubric and I did as she said. You could see it in her face that she was mad and she was searching for a way to get me in trouble, but she could not. I got an A+ on that assignment, but I have to worry now about her being on my back. What did I take out of this? Learn how your teacher or instructor does their thing and do it how they want it. Another thing is that revenge is great, but it'll bite your back. This is my first post here, so I hope you enjoy my life story. Also sorry if my format, haha, is bad or if I have grammar/spelling mistake. TLDR, my teacher was super uptight and gave me a bad grade, so I got my little revenge. Thank you. Next. My co-worker, and absolute hero, maliciously complied at security on one of our subcontracted jobs. The customer was a manufacturer for high-end electronic components. Security was tight as a small 4x6 box could contain $250,000 worth of microchips. Our team was installing equipment in their facility for 1 week. A security checkpoint had to be passed every trip in or out of the building. Mr. Security Guard, Chad maybe, decided my co-worker, Steve probably, was more suspicious than the other 4 techs. So every trip in or out, not only was Steve made to dump his entire contents of his backpack out on the table and go through it, Chad required Steve to show him the last 5 pictures taken on his phone to prove he wasn't stealing secrets. This is all fine, except Chad lets everyone else through without any sort of inspection. Steve is trying to stay positive, but obviously this is eating away at him. Steve tries to be overly positive and also a bit snarky with comments like "Thank you Paul Blart for keeping America safe," which busts up the rest of our crew. Then, Steve has the idea that will free him the rest of the week. Wednesday comes along. Steve is overly scrutinized on our way in as usual. As we head to security at lunch, Steve says he has to go to the bathroom. He comes back out a few minutes later, absolutely giddy. Chad Blart, mall cop, stops us on our way out and asks Steve to see his camera roll. Steve gladly hands the phone over. Chad is greeted by some very peculiarly angled shots of Steve's butthole. What the F that $? Chad throws the phone down on the table. "Oh, sorry. I thought I had a hemorrhoid and wanted to see how bad it was. Is everything okay with my pictures? Is the facility safe?" Chad never checked Steve's materials again. Good on you, Steve. Thank you. Next. This didn't happen to me but to my mother a few years back while she was working at a local supermarket. As the chain grew bigger and bigger, the people in charge hired a security guard for that particular store. Now, normally security guards just watch the cameras closely, sometimes chat up the cashiers while there weren't any customers and so on, but this guy they hired, he was a major butthole. He refused to talk to anyone, never made a proper connection with the people working there or customers in any sort of way. Every morning and every night he would ask the staff to empty their purses and pockets right in front of him to make sure they weren't stealing. Total invasion of privacy. My mom put up with it for some time, but after a week or so she got annoyed and decided to conduct some malicious compliance. What did she do, you may ask? She bought a bunch of tampons, pads and cheap flavored condoms and loosely threw them in her bag. The very next day she went to work a bit late on purpose, making sure the first shift had started and customers were rolling in already. Walking in the store, first thing right at the door she was asked to empty her bag, and with a smile on her face she obliged. I, unfortunately, wasn't a direct witness of this, but the face on that security guard was something between horror and second-hand embarrassed when he saw the items carefully chosen by my mom. After that day no one was bag searched ever again. Thank you. Next. One of my favorite deployment stories. I was a 92Y logistician in the United States Army National Guard. During a deployment we have our pre-mobilization. Think of it as the setup to deploy, our mobilization, the deployment, and then our demob, coming home. For this deployment I was taken from battalion level logistics, S4, and placed at unit level supply. My new supply SGT was a great guy and a really hands-off leader, which did cause problems sometimes when we needed specific instructions, but all around a great SGT who I really enjoyed working for. During our premib he was put on torch, which basically means he was sent to Afghanistan a few months earlier than everyone else, so me and my battle buddy, Illy, had to run the supply room and handle the rear and forward property books. A huge task, but with the help of some really awesome mencos, the best, first SGT and commander in the world, we were able to get it done. But unfortunately with just me and my battle running the supply room I ran into the single most person I have had a disdain for more than any other person in the army. More than any Blue Falcon, 8-up soldiers, more than any 8-up leadership, the person who earned the title of my most hated person I ever had a displeasure of meeting shall here in our tale be known as Warrant Officer Johnny, the maintenance warrant officer. For those that don't know, warrant officers kinda do their own thing. They kind of don't really answer to anyone, nor do you ever even really see them that often because of this, so the even fact that this guy went out of his way to be a dick speaks towards his character. The first interaction, my very first interaction with Johnny, came from when I was introduced to him during premib. During this interaction he proceeded to berate, insult and badmouth and co that I was previously under. Let's call him Sergeant Soul. Sergeant Soul was the embodiment of what it meant to be a SGT in the army. No nonsense but fun, cared about his troops and the mission. Dude is by far one of the best soldiers I've ever had the pleasure of serving under. He could not attend the deployment because he had cancer. And here was this greasy soup sandwich of a warrant officer bad-mouthing mine co while he wasn't around to others for not attending a deployment due to cancer. Phrases used where it's just an excuse he should have quit the army. Then I don't even know why he is still in the army. I of course didn't stand for this and stood up for mine co, saying while Johnny and SGT Soul obviously must have had some personal issues against each other, that's no reason to badmouth him to others who don't know him, especially him as a soldier and sergeant. He then proceeded to tell me, and I quote, that if I ever look up to SGT Soul that I would never be shit in the military. Won't lie, that cut deep. But I held my tongue. Since then I knew to not really trust Warrant Officer Johnny and keep my distance. This didn't work for whatever reason. Since that day, he proceeded to harass me every chance he got, having comments on my competency as a soldier, how I chose to run and organize the supply room act. I pushed back as I was confident in what I was doing, and with my current co being gone for all intents and purpose I was the supply sergeant. I answered the commander and he knew it. These comments continued up until the time during pre-mob where Warrant Officer Johnny lost 15 night vision goggles. Apparently they were in an MRE box, out of their bags, unlabeled. If this sounds stupid, as all hell it is, the story gets even crazy when I get word from another supply sergeant that apparently Warrant Officer Johnny has gone to our battalion commander and told him that I lost the NVGs. Yes, I lost 18 NVGs. That doesn't belong to my unit, were never assigned to me, nor did I sign anything for them. He claimed that he brought the box into my supply room and that was the last time he saw them and that I must have lost them. Enraged and with several officers present, I told the supply SGT that that was bullshit and I'm going to go beat the shit out of Warrant Officer Johnny right now. I then proceeded to head towards his office as the SGT was telling the officers I was joking. I wasn't. Unfortunately or fortunately, I never found Warrant Officer Johnny and the NVGS were found to be on some random first SGTS desk. They had been all day and were never in the possession of Warrant Officer Johnny. He later apologized to me, in private. I was then scolded by the battalion commander on maintaining my supply room, which I had been doing. Few months pass and we deploy, and guess who ends up at my free on board, forward operating base? That's right, Warrant Officer Johnny. I was in charge of managing our air operations, tracking who comes who goes and keeping track of what cargo goes in and out, as well as tracking flight times. Johnny again always every day had a comment about how I was working, how I wasn't doing anything correctly and must have been an idiot. My disdain for this man grew with each passing day. So while running air ops we use a forklift to load and unload cargo onto the helicopters, and Mr. Johnny wanted to borrow our forklift. We were done with air ops for the day and it was a pretty busy day shift, so we let him have it and he drives off. Mind you, this wasn't the best forklift. The gas gauge was broken, the forks were kinda crooked, and it desperately needed new parts and was on its last legs. Guess who was in charge of ordering and fixing that forklift and didn't? Guess whose soldier broke the previous forklift we had? The answer to both of these may shock you, but yes, it was Warrant Officer Johnny. So while he was borrowing our forklift, it ran out of gas in the middle of camp. Rather than simply put gas in it, he went to a random co and told him to make my section write a 1,000-word essay that maintaining our equipment is important and why it's important. Yes, a 1,000-word essay. In Afghanistan. I was livid and respectfully told the co no and that I'm willing to take whatever punishment came with it. But after thinking about it, I've come too far and won't let this man beat me, so I agreed to write the essay. I wrote on the first page, maintaining our equipment is very for 500 words. So the entire front page was mostly very. The back of the page I wanted to dedicate to the why part of his essay, and wanting to of course complete the task to the best of my ability, I wrote about the topic at hand and wanting to maintain military Baron. I needed a word to describe Warrant Officer Johnny. The word I found was troglodyte. I basically put that maintaining your equipment is important so that troglodytes like Warrant Officer, first name redacted, Johnny, do not attempt to make you write a bullshit essay in Afghanistan. My final words were, I hope I made my point. He of course was offended by this and took the essay straight to my first SGT, who proceeded to laugh in his face. The next day, expecting I was in trouble, I got called to speak with the first sergeant. He pulls out my essay and says, "Op, that's a lot of veries." I said, "Roger, first sergeant." He said, "I'm assuming you needed a certain amount of words so you used very." I said, "Roger, first sergeant." He then flipped the essay over and simply says, "Troglodyte, I have no idea what that even means, but I know it's negative." He said, "But you're right, this guy's a cunt. If he keeps giving you trouble, let me know and I'll kick him off the camp." He never gave me any more trouble the whole deployment. TL. Doctor, I got to call a warrant officer a troglodyte. Thank you. Next. My son was 6 at the time and I had just bought him one of those balsa wood planes. He had a great temperament and has always been an exceptional kid, but he had a habit around that time that if something didn't immediately go right, he would walk away telling me to throw whatever it was away. So, he assembled the plane and gave it one toss and it nosedived. He had put the tail fins in incorrectly. "Throw it away," he said, pouting. I think you all see where this is going. Usually I would try to help him fix whatever the issue was. This time I had had enough. "Okay," I said. I picked up the plane, calmly broke it in half in front of him and put it in the trash. He was mortified. "I didn't even get a chance to play with it," he said. "I know," I replied, "but you said throw it away. Words have meanings, bud. I simply did what you said." He never pulled that shit again, not even once.